Okay, we're live. That was pretty hairy there for a few minutes. We had one mean little thunderstorm come by. The power was flicking on and off. It's still thundering, but the power hadn't flicked in a few minutes, so we'll try to hang in there. If we do get blown off the air, I'll restart the show, and you, I'll probably post a new link in the Stunthangar control line forums for you to come into the video, and a whole new show will start rather than me trying to restart the original one. So, with that said, good evening, Charles. How are you tonight?
Doing well. How are you, man?
I'm okay. Got off to kind of a hairy start. We had a mean thunderstorm blow through right about supper time, and the radar looked like it was going to go away, but it never did. It just got bigger and bigger. So the power was blinking, and couldn't start the show like that. We had enough trouble when the hurricane was here. This was worse than that for a minute. But
Wow.
anyway, we're here. Hopefully, we'll stay. And I was just telling everybody, if we do get blown off by a power outage, then unless it's too bad, then I'll restart the show with a new link over in Stunthanger. And I think I got all the links in the right places. Obviously, the Stunthanger link is posted since you're here.
Yep. Yeah, I thought I'd help you out until some other people join in because I'm working on my airplane.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jackson Avley's here watching us. Let's see, I got you. Yeah, he says it's been off and on there in Kansas too. So, yeah, they might be having tornadoes up there in Kansas. No
Wow.
telling, no telling what happens in Kansas if you get in a storm. Been epic stories written about that. Oh, let's see. Oh, Sparky says he's got a sore throat, so he can't come on. Well, thanks for letting us know about that, Sparky. And
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
yeah, we don't wanna catch the sore throat. Tom Creasy is in YouTube. Ron Hass just joined the video call, so everything is settling out and coming back to normal. Sounds like the thunder is beginning to subside too. So
Oh, good.
we had a great show the other night. Unfortunately, the power outage knocked us off, and I couldn't record to YouTube any longer. So people that watch live over there or come back and watch reruns were not able to get that show, but it had good content. We had a lot of fun. It just did not get recorded to YouTube after the first 50 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But at least I got to see the first 15 minutes, and then I joined you.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
Doing okay. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
Keeping dry, Rusty?
Yeah, I am. I am glad that storm is done and gone. It's still raining on our northern neighbors, but it's left the state of South Carolina, except for flooding everywhere, especially down the closer you get to the coast. The rivers are overrunning their banks, and people's houses are filling up with water, and it's a real mess. We here in Columbia, we are lucky by only a few miles. If we'd been a few miles farther north, then we'd have serious trouble too. Up there, just 20 miles above Columbia, north of Columbia, people are flooding, and all of their belongings are floating around. So I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we didn't have to put up with that. My treatments today went on as planned. The clinic was in good shape. They had power and water, so all's well in that department.
All right.
I had to go a long time, all the way since last Wednesday, without any treatment from them. But it's all good. It's all getting back to normal now.
Your shop survived okay?
It did. It's dry as a bone.
Great.
I figured that my blueprints hanging from the clothesline in there were going to feel like toilet paper, but they're still crisp and crinkly too. So it held out. It held out the humidity and water pretty well. the floor's dry. I needed a good excuse to vacuum it, so I get to put that off a little longer.
Hey, that sounds like work. You got to watch it.
Let's see. Gerald is over on YouTube. Looks like Bob Hunt just dropped in live with us. Good evening, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, Ron.
Let's see. We got Jack Snavely was our first. Tom Creasy's here. Gerald Wimmer. So, yeah, we got our usual crew.
All right. Well, now that you got some people, I'm going to pop out because I'm going to listen to it offline.
Okay. And Chris Horner just joined us. Hey, Chris from Florida.
Hey, Chris. Hey, James, did you get that twister flying again?
Yep, I flew it yesterday.
How's it working?
Like nothing ever happened.
There you go.
Really? How much heavier is it?
That's actually a good question. I actually never weighed it, to be quite honest with you. Let me see.
Yeah, a lot of times people say they fly better after that first wreck.
That I ain't had to adjust nothing, add anything. Let's see. 2 pounds, 8 ounces.
40 ounces. Okay.
All right, so I pretty much gained 2 ounces because I was at.
Well, 40 is right in the wheelhouse. That's what my blueprint says. It should come out between 38 and 42, I think. Something like that.
Is that what a twister's coming in at right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still at 29 on mine. I haven't finished it yet, though. But that's with everything mounted on it.
Yeah, well, you're in good shape that way. That'll be good for, I fly mine with the FP40, so 40 size engine's about perfect for it.
Yeah, I was going to try and stick with my folks' 35 anniversary, so.
You can probably get away with that. It's going to be tail heavy, I bet.
Yeah.
But that's easy enough to fix. You can put an acorn nut on the front or something like that.
Yeah.
Hey, Rusty, I'm going to switch to YouTube because I'm going to be back and forth for a while.
Okay, Ron.
See you guys Friday, if not before.
Take it easy.
All right. See you later. Jack Snavely is saying hi to everybody all over the world.
Hey, Jack.
We had our first Australian join us the other night, and Mark, and I don't remember his last name now, but when he comes in, if he comes in tonight, maybe I'll catch it. But that was fun. Always like getting somebody new. And time-wise, Australia is difficult, for their schedule catching this. I think it was the middle of the afternoon when he was talking to us, and most people are at work or busy. And, well, kind of like Gerald, but a little later in the afternoon for Gerald. So who's been flying airplanes? Well, I know I know that Jamie has. What you been flying, Bob?
This weekend, I went up to the Garden State Circle Burners contest.
That's right. I heard y'all talking about that the other night.
Yeah, just to drop off a couple of wings to people that I made for him. And my friend Will Demaro had his son's Gieske Nobler, the ARF Gieske Nobler that the Moon Brothers make. And he said, why don't you fly in the classic event? So I said, okay. So I did a practice flight and everything worked pretty good. Went over to do an official, and I think I'm up at the end of the runway, there's a little berm of grass, and it pitched the nose down. Airplane got loose, got into the air, went away from me, hit the end of the line so hard that it made a 180-degree turn and came right at me. I gave it a thought about catching it for about 2 microseconds and then stepped aside and hit the ground and just busted the motor mount. So he blew the motor mount back in, and we did a practice flight. And on the wing over in the practice flight, the airplane exploded halfway through the outside turn. It had been damaged inside, so that one was destroyed.
Oh, good gosh.
So Keith Ferguson lent me his Gene Schaefer designed Judge to fly in the contest. And long story short, I got 2 good flights in and placed second to Rick Huff, who's flying his Chipmunk that he's had for so long.
Yeah. Oh, well, good work.
We had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I hadn't planned on flying, that's for sure. Those are the first patterns I've flown in 2 years.
Wow. Well, you got off to an awful rough start. Sorry about busting up the plane, but hey.
Well, Bill DeMauro got off to a rougher start. He had to take the pieces home and explain to his son why his airplane was crashed.
Yeah, I was flying solo one day, and the grass was too tall, and I hooked the grass. I was flying my shoestring. This was my first bigger than half A plane, and it turned in, but it was rich, so it all was in slow motion, and it banked, did a nice bank, turned in, came straight at me, climbing and climbing. I didn't know whether to run or wave at it as it went by. And it went over my head and got to the other end of the lines before it actually yanked him. It hit the ground and broke one of the Brodak bent aluminum landing gear in half. That was strange. I've never broken one of those, but it was at one of the bends that it broke. So without a stooge, I couldn't fly anymore that day. So I threw it in the car and went home. But that's the first grass hook I ever had.
Yeah, they could get away from you. I remember at the 80 Nationals, launched Wendy's second sweeper, the foam wing sweeper. And huge airplane, like 1,200.
Oh, yeah, that sweeper I've seen.
And I flew that airplane, and my arm hurt for a month. But he was taking off, and a line snagged something on the runway, and it turned in at him, and it chased him all around the field for about 30 seconds. Never got airborne, thank God. And finally, somebody was able to throw a rag in the prop, but he was chasing the thing around. It was funny.
Yeah, it gets kind of comical sometimes. I remember Brett Buck, I think it was him, writing about having one get away. It might have been a windy day. For whatever happened, it got away, and he did what we're all taught never to do, is reached out and grabbed the lines and somehow managed to save it. But, I don't know. I think I got that story right, but yeah, I've only ever reached out and grabbed the lines on a half A plane, and that resulted in yanking the bell crank out and smashing through every rib all the way up to the tip.
You don't want to mess with trying to grab the lines when an airplane gets loose.
Yeah.
Jim Tate had one of his airplanes. He had it on a stooge mounted to his flight box, and he started the engine and was walking out to the handle, and he heard the airplane unload. He heard the engine unload. And apparently the stooge had released the airplane. And the airplane's coming right at him. And it goes by him, and he reaches out to grab the lines between his index finger and his middle finger, and the line cut the finger right off, completely off. And he had to wrap his hand in a bandage and get in his car and drive to the hospital with the finger. They reattached it, but he never regained full use of it. But
mercy. Yeah, cut all those tendons and everything. It's serious damage. Hey, Daryl, how are you doing tonight?
Hello, I'm Sparky and Bob and Jamie and Chris.
What's up, Joe?
We're just sitting here talking about variations on the grass snag when you're trying to launch a plane and the grass is too tall.
Yeah, I heard the one where you said you grabbed the lines once, and I did that recently, and I was just lucky the plane was moving slowly. It was only a mile cut on the hand. But yeah, it's scary. My son was flying his new model on the weekend, and it started getting away on him, but he just caught it back. It was starting to climb at an angle into the wind and come in, but he was quick enough, and it was his brand new model. He didn't want to lose it, so he managed to regain control. But it is always scary when that happens at the start of a flight, or something you're not expecting.
Yeah.
You learn those skills to try and sprint over the circle as quick as you can, and it's quite neat watching somebody that's well practiced in that art of sort of ballet on the flying field, moving around to or sprinting one way or the other to try and.
It's amazing how fast you can move when you have to.
And they don't think we're athletes.
Yeah.
Old man athletic.
Yeah, all that work at stake, you just don't want to let it go all too easy, do you?
No.
Yeah, I had a Mackie Lark out at VSC, the first flight on the airplane, and Billy Werwage launched it. And I went to do a wing over, and the engine just shut off. It blew a plug, and it was just going straight up, and there was no way to loop out. And I'd often heard that you're not supposed to run away from the airplane. You were supposed to run 90 degrees to the airplane. So that's what I did. I just took off running and did save it. And Billy said it was the best save he'd ever seen. I don't remember much about it except turning around and running like crazy and 90 degrees to the airplane.
Yeah, there's been amazing saves over the years. And yeah, I think we've all had a good one and we've all had a bad one in our time.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really good save a couple of years ago when Max was flying his biplane at our nationals, and it was the day before the event. So we did all we could to save this plane because he wanted to fly it in the event. But on the day it crashed anyway, but we rebuilt it and we got it flying again. But biplanes just lose their airspeed a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah.
If you've got they get really dramatic. They can do all different strange things you can't imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you get the bi-slob and you get the other version, scale biplane, doing its own version of free flight.
Did you ever fly a bi-slob?
I've had different biplanes over the years, but I haven't flown a bi-slob. A friend of mine's got one and he flies it. But attempting to build one, but haven't got around to it. I've got to find the time to finish off other more mundane things, I suppose.
I in Union, New Jersey, which is on the East Coast, and the guy who actually designed the bi-slob, Ron Pavlover, who recently passed away, he used to fly it at all the contests. He'd bring it, and after the contest, he put on a show, and he was the best bi-slob flyer I ever saw because he designed it, had more time on it than anyone. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I've seen Shuggy flying his one on the different videos. It's always fun to watch. And my friend Bill Bell, when he pulls his out at a contest, he's got wheels on the top as well as the bottom, so he can land it.
I saw a flight streak like that one time, wheels on both sides. I think it was a joke, but it was funny. I've never flown a bi-slob. A lot of times when we go up to Watt's house, Watt Moore, he will bring a bunch of planes out of the shop, and he's asked me on several occasions if I want to fly his bi-slob, but I've always declined because I think I'd rather fly one of my own. I sure don't want to bust up Watt's. Of course, Banjock's busted it up a bunch of times, but he always puts it back together. So.
Danny's a really good bi-slob flyer too. He's an excellent bi-slob flyer.
Yeah, I've seen him do it.
Not quite in the same league as Ronnie, the guy who designed it, but real close.
I'll tell you, my brother.
That plane, did he have its flight characteristics that we're so familiar with now? Is that what he had in mind? Do you know when he designed it, or did it just turn out that way?
I really don't know. I mean, I just remember watching. I was just kind of a spectator in those days at the Stunt event, watching him fly. Him and Gene and Bill Simons and all those guys fly. And at the end of the contest, invariably he pulled the thing out and put on a show. And that was worth staying to the end just to watch Ronnie fly that bi-slob.
Oh, getting back to odd, funny things happening. Jack Snavely writes that they've got birds there in Kansas that look like giant swallows that attack planes and jerked the handle right from his little brother's hand and crashed it and broke the Fox 25 motor mounts.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'd never seen. I didn't know there was a raptor with a swallowtail until we were at the beach this summer. And my wife and her friends saw one and described it to me. So I whipped out the phone and Googled swallow-tailed raptor, and sure enough, there is a raptor-like bird, forward-sighted bird with a swallow tail. It's a neat-looking bird. But I guess one of those, yeah, if it hits your plane, it could take it out of your hands because, you know, eagles, hawks, they got bigger wingspans than what Jack's little brother was probably flying. Fox 25, maybe. I don't know. Probably at least that size. Yeah, that was a fair fight.
I had one once and had pieces of bird and feathers in the landing gear. It got hung up in the landing gear. It didn't do a whole lot of damage to the airplane, but it sure killed the bird. Yeah,
kind of like that bird. I think it was Randy Johnson hit it with a fastball in a baseball game. Did you ever see that highlight? I actually was watching that game when it happened, and the bird just exploded between the pitcher's mound and the home plate.
Totally destroyed it.
I had a seagull with a combat plane once, but I just took off a couple of feathers and it stayed clear of the vehicle. But I didn't even see it; just flew into the seagull. But you know, it was okay. It appeared to be okay. Your twister, Chris.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. I just put my focus on that.
Your twister that you're working on, Chris.
Yeah. What about it?
Oh, it's looking nice. Looking good.
Yeah, we were just looking at it.
It's getting there. I used Sparky's method for doing all the fillets and everything, so that just turned out really nice. Right now, I'm kind of at a point just sanding and painting and putting the control surfaces, hooking them up.
Is that the first time you've worked with Superfill?
Yeah, kind of yes and no. The first time I've really messed with it much. I used it on the All-American Senior I just built. So, yeah, within the past few months, it's the first time I've really used it. It's really nice stuff.
Yeah, it really is. We used to use epoxylite, but this stuff's much better.
Yeah, I like the sandability of the Superfill. I mean, you're getting the epoxy strength out of it, but it's really a lot more sandable than the epoxylite or anything. So,
absolutely,
I really like that. But I mean, if you I like how Sparky has on one of his videos how to do it. There's really not much, if any, sanding to do to it. So, I really like that.
Do you buy Superfill from a hobby store, or is this a home hardware item?
I get it from Rodak.
Yeah, I get it from Rodak, and I think Aircraft Spruce sells it.
Yeah, and it's a lot less expensive when you buy it through Aircraft Spruce.
You know, Wayne was over in my shop a couple of weeks ago and saw my new package of Superfill sitting on the table, and of course, it's mine has a certain amount in one container, and the other container is half as much. And he said that his Superfill came in equal size containers.
Huh. I've always seen it 2 to 1. Yeah.
Yeah, like mine right now. I'm looking at the blue jar is bigger than the white jar.
Yeah.
The mixing thing is interesting. It's 2 to 1, whether it be by weight or volume.
Oh, is it really by weight? I didn't know that.
By weight or volume, it's 2 to 1.
Because I've weighed epoxy before, and it's not the same weight. So I was hoping it would be, but it wasn't.
And I really just eyeball it. I don't do weight or volume or anything. That looks about right.
I eyeball it really carefully. And I'll tell you, I put it on a card and look over the top of it, too, and see which puddle is taller, because it settles and spreads out at different rates, and so try to be careful about getting equal parts like that.
I suppose it's too viscous to use a spoon. Is it too thick to use a spoon? And measure it out.
What's that?
Is it like a paste? Can you measure it out in spoon quantities, or is it too thick like a glue? You can't,
it's thinner. It's a thinner putty, really. So it can get pretty runny. I guess I really compare it to, though.
Nothing like epoxy, though. I mean, you can scoop this stuff out with a popsicle stick.
Yeah,
that's what I do. Yeah. What did I do with that stuff?
Because in the past, I've used epoxy and micro balloons, and your traditional epoxy is a 4-to-1 mix, four parts epoxy to 1 part hardener. So I suppose the Superfill's somewhere in between that and the equal part mixing, which is obviously convenient, but supposed to have more fillers or additives in a 2-to-1 or a 1 ratio epoxy. You've got less of your natural epoxy in it.
Gerald, I think your microphone's getting obscured or obstructed somehow because you keep getting like you're muffled sometimes in and out.
Maybe it's where I positioned it. I'll try moving it around. Might be filled with dust.
I do have a question for y'all. I'm about to do all my control hook linkages and everything. What do y'all prefer for music wire hooking up to like threaded ends and stuff like that, threaded couplers? Do y'all use epoxy or would y'all solder that?
JB Weld.
JB Weld?
That's what I use.
Okay.
Now, what I did though, yeah, you talking about the little the music wire for the little 440 threaded coupler?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the coupler that slips over the wire.
Yes.
Yeah, I use JB Weld on that.
Okay.
I use carbon fiber and whatnot too.
I've done it different ways, but I usually, usually I don't use music wire for linkages. I use carbon fiber tube. But if I am using music wire, I try to find the size that fits into the threaded part really well, and then just solder it in.
Yeah, they really make those 440 couplers for some 332nd music wire, so that's what I've been using.
Yeah, I usually scar it up pretty good on the part whether it's glue or solder. I scuff it up, so to give it some grip.
Okay.
But I use that for my twister because I put a ball link on my bell crank, and I got a 440 threaded rod, and it's not fully threaded, but threaded into the ball link, and actually I redone it twice. The first time I did it, I used a threaded coupler, and JB welded it in the coupler onto the rod, and it's actually. When I'm thinking about it, that's actually how I got it connected right now. Yeah.
If you do scuff it, like I was talking about, make sure you stop scuffing it before you get anywhere close to where it exits. Where the wire goes into the threaded coupler and bottoms out, because you don't want a chink in it that's going to be prone to breaking right there at the edge.
Okay.
Yeah, what did I cut? I got my Dremel with the little cut oil and cut little tiny notches around it here and there, just kind of sporadic. And just kind of for that in there.
And sometimes I'll sleeve it with brass and kind of do the same thing.
Okay, cool. That all sounds pretty good.
Anybody need a brand new motor? Because I'm about to list it on Stunthangar.
What is it?
It's a OS 40 FPS.
No, I've got 2 of them, so I think I'm all right.
Brand new, never seen fuel.
I've got one that was modified by John Tate, and the other one is box stock, as far as I know.
The FPS or the FP?
Well, the FP, by S, you mean it's a Venturi and not a carburetor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of mine have Venturis. I have no idea what their history is, though. But the timing and all is the same, I presume. I don't spend a lot of time trying to get 4.2 brakes out of mine. I'll make sure that it's rich, a little rich when it's horizontal, and speeds up when you lift it, but I don't spend any more time than that trying to get a clear 4.2 brake. I just like to make sure that I'm confident when I pull into that first wing over, it's going to power up and go over the top without hoping it's going to break too. But there are some motors, like my Max S35, when I'm sport flying, especially, I like, if I want to play with a 4.2 brake, like on my shoestring, I got a Max S35, and it does the most gorgeous 4.2 brake I ever heard. So I do try to get it tuned so it does a classic brake. And of course, those electric guys have automatic brakes on theirs, right?
Well, they got the governors and the active timer systems now. But even without the active timer systems, the castle creation speed controls have a governor on them. So it was kind of fun flying a 2.4 brake glow with the Max 35S and Keith Ferguson's Judge. It was kind of fun having flown a glow airplane in a long time, and it was kind of fun over the weekend. Only problem was he made me wipe it off when I was done flying it.
Take your leg, Bob.
I like being all greasy.
Yeah, I like it too.
Greasy clothes, greasy planes. I like walking around with a rag hanging from my pocket, look like a real grease monkey.
I bought a new van after I started flying electric because it doesn't smell like blow fuel,
The nice thing with the batteries is that they're nice hand warmers. When it's a cold day, you grab your used batteries and you can walk around with these nice little hand warmers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep hand warmers in my car and in my flight box in the wintertime too. Those are always good to have on hand. What I like is the ones that have the adhesive back, and you can rip the backing off and stick it to your T-shirt right there, and button your shirt up to the neck, and those help keep you nice and toasty on chilly days.
I haven't thought of doing that with battery packs, but I suppose I've got Velcro on most of my battery packs. I could do that too if I had a nice woolly jumper on.
Yeah, I think I'd want a battery where I could get at it quick if it decided to overheat all of a sudden.
Yeah. I did a lot of flying electric just at home, and it was always a neat feature that when it's a cold going numb, being able to pull up a battery pack. I've been using it. They take a long time to cool down the lithium packs. So they might be warm for half an hour or so. I don't know.
That's a lot of layers of electrolyte wrapped up in there. I'm not sure what's in them actually. I don't know much about the architecture of lipo batteries.
Well, it's lithium.
Is it got paper inside that's rolled up, paper and foil rolled up like capacitors and that sort of thing?
Packs of lithium, but now they've got a new one now, and it's a solid state one. It's got a plate and or wafer they call it, and they're supposed to have many times the capacity that for the given weight that we have today, and they're also capable of running. If you drive a nail through them while they're running, they won't affect them. So they're not going to have any kind of venting with flames. People say the batteries explode. They don't explode. Batteries do not explode, but they do vent with flames, much in the same manner that the Hindenburg vented with flames.
Yeah.
But these new batteries are going to be totally safe.
I suppose the automotive market would demand that. I'm sure Tesla would be keen to have a battery like that where you don't get the dramatic videos of a car burning.
That's where it's coming from, the automotive market. They're getting 1,200 miles per charge right now out of them.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's going to be a deal where you're going to be choosing a battery in the future predicated on how much nose weight you need in the airplane to balance it. And then you're going to figure out how many flights you could do on one charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, well, I suppose it comes down to cost. It's where those more expensive cars have a really good range. So there's nothing you can't say they can't do. But the cheaper cars, like where my wife works, they have all the little Nissan Leafs, and they keep running out of charge on the motorway. They get stuck in traffic, and they've got the lights on and the wipers going, and the next thing they're out of juice, and they're stuck on the motorway.
It's going to change real quick here. So, I mean, we really don't need more capacity than what we have right now for a given weight. We're right at where we want to be. But it'll be interesting when you can get a battery that's much safer for charging. I've never had a problem with any batteries, but you know, I've heard of people having batteries that are vetted. These new ones are going to be interesting to see exactly how many flights you can get on one charge.
Oh, I can throw away my charging goggles.
Tom Creasy just joined us.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
How you guys doing?
We're good.
Are you Rusty? Are you living in a house or a houseboat?
No, I'm living in a house. We were in the lucky zone.
Oh, that's great.
Not by much, but we were in the lucky zone.
Yeah.
We were all thinking about you here.
Yeah,
Looking at-
thanks. I appreciate y'all thinking about me. But we weathered it pretty well, so to speak, and I know a lot of people are still having problems because the rivers are swelling, and the closer you get to the coast, the wetter it gets. And I hope they are draining back pretty soon. Get all those people back home.
It's going to be a big cleanup.
Yeah, floods are horrible. I'd never really experienced one, and still was lucky. In 2015, we had a horrible day, several days of rain, 15, I don't know, inches. I'm going to say it might have been more than that, but everything in town was flooded. It was just a mess, and that's where that's the closest I've ever come to really experiencing a serious flood.
You know, when Katrina went through, my brother, who lives down in Charlotte, just outside of Charlotte, he called me and asked me if I'd like to go down with their North Carolina Baptist Men's Association. They committed to rebuilding 500 houses. They donated all the labor and all the materials to rebuild 500 houses. So I went down with one of the work crews for a week, and we had to tear out all the wallboard out of a house that had been totally submerged. And we had to tear off all the wallboard and all the insulation and replace everything. You know, it was just a mess. You
gotta get to it before the mold has a chance to set.
After you get the wallboard and the insulation out, you had to spray it with this stuff that would kill the mold and the mildew.
Yeah, antifungal agent.
Yeah.
You could drive through there right now in the lower ninth and in Gentilly and all that, and it still looks the same as it did when the storm hits.
Oh, that's right. That's where you were, isn't it, Jamie? More or less.
No, I mean I work over there
Yeah.
quite a bit, and you know the people over there just let everything go to waste. Just let it fall apart. That's just how them people are over there. When I lived over there, I didn't have no problems because I lived in Metairie, so we had 4 or 5 foot of water in our apartment, but we lived on the 3rd floor, so we didn't get no damage. We were good.
What about the building, though? Was it still stable? I mean, did y'all have to move out of it?
Oh no, we stayed in it. We stayed in it. I mean, it was about a month before we was able to actually go back to it. We went over there a week after it hit to get our stuff, and then it was about a month before we was able to move back into it.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, that swimming pool looked like a giant toilet. Water went from nice, clear, bluish, whatever, to jet black.
I suppose we've seen videos of what happened in New Orleans those years ago, and I suppose a lot of places just didn't get rebuilt because of its chance of being flooded again.
Yeah, that's a lot of it too. I mean, the mayor they have down there is a joke.
Yeah, he didn't.
Rather spend money on tearing down statues than fixing the pumps that failed the city.
Yeah, there was a lot of finger pointing and blame storming going on.
Oh yeah, still is.
We get bad flooding here, but luckily we haven't really hit it in our house, but we're quite close to the sea, so I think it drains away fast enough, whereas once you go inland where it gets banked up and then the rivers can't cope, then you seem to get more inland flooding. So it's something that may get worse if all the proponents of global warming are all correct. We'll be continually fighting that problem of flooding and adverse weather.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to head out for the night. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to y'all later.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chris,
Yeah.
thanks for dropping in and showing us the twister.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully, I'll have some videos up here soon of it flying.
All right.
We'll see y'all.
Good
All
night.
right. Take care.
Oh man.
It was just nice to get back to somewhat regular routine today.
Yeah. Did they eventually when you rusty or not? Not that
I didn't understand what you said. Try again, Gerald.
I'm sorry. Did they get close to evacuating you, Rusty? Did you?
Mm-mm.
I suppose you said it got
No.
20.
Not Columbia. Actually, Columbia was kind of a donor city. We opened the schools and civic centers and shelters to take in anybody and everybody that we could that was evacuating from the coast. We were kind of in the clear. Now, it was such a mystery as to where that storm was going to go that, you know, nobody could be sure, but it worked out well. We were able to take in a lot of people from the coast that would otherwise have had to go on up to Greenville, I suppose, because Charlotte wasn't an option. Charlotte was right in its path too, worse so than Columbia. But yeah, we fared pretty well right here in Columbia. Can't say it wasn't scary though, especially last week, earlier in the week, Wednesday and Thursday, when it was a Category 4 storm and it was only moving at 4 or 5 miles an hour forward, and the huge footprint of rain bands, and your imagination could go wild worrying about what that could potentially do. But and it did, and it did in some places. But like I said, we were lucky in Columbia.
So you just had short power cuts. You didn't have major outages for days at a time.
No, my power flicked on and off a few times. Unfortunately, it flicked off while we were doing a show here. So we lost the YouTube recording, but we were able to keep going just as a private chat, and actually had a pretty good session that night.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
They're talking about vertical CGs and how that affects airplanes.
Oh yeah, yeah. Trying to clarify the difference between a roll and yaw.
Yeah.
Pitch and roll.
Yeah. And sort of your wheels to get your vertical CG right. Because that's where there's a lot more thought to it than just getting your basic CG right and getting the right tip right. There's a lot more to it.
I never can remember the correct name for all of the different centers of gravity either.
Roll, pitch, and yaw.
Yeah.
And one of them, pitch is obviously the one that most of us know most about, but the roll is probably the one that affects flight and control line more than anything.
Yeah.
It's good recently that you don't really have to worry about where you put your bell crank as long as you've got the right line rate. Is that right, Bob?
Well, the bell crank you can put in the rudder or the spinner. It doesn't matter where the bell crank is. The airplane doesn't fly at all from the bell crank. The airplane flies from where it's tethered at the lead outs versus the center of gravity. Bill Netzy Band had a really neat little board set up that showed that. He put the bell crank, like 20 inches apart, forward of the CG and 20 inches behind, put the lead outs out, put the CG, and it balanced, it hung from the lead outs, no matter where the bell crank was mounted, it hung at the same angle.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
But you put the bell crank where it's convenient for the lead outs to get out with no drag or anything. That's really why you put the bell crank near the CG. It's just more convenient to get the lead outs out without having any kind of drag on them.
Hey, Tom, I muted your mic while you're sanding, so if you want to say anything, be sure and reach over there and click your mic back on.
I've had a number of airplanes, my son's Europas in particular, and Billy Werwage has had a number of airplanes where the bell crank was completely behind the main spar. The whole bell crank was in the aft 2/3 of the wing, and the lead outs went forward to the lead out guide, and they flew fine. They flew great. Matter of fact, if anything, they flew better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the reason I say that is I've been working on those ringmasters for me and my two sons. They've been working away. Otto's been quite good, quite diligent with his building, but my one was the first one, and so as I made it, I decided I'd do the suspended bell crank. So the original plan of basically, I didn't have any bell crank mount shown on the plan. So I was a little bit concerned, and then I sort of thought, no, it doesn't matter where I put the bell crank. It's only the lead out position that's important.
That's right.
So that's why I built it. But yeah, the original plan that I'm working off is one of the ones where it's set up for monoline. They suggest one to use the old monoline on it. So yeah, it's a very old kit, and it's got, instead of saying for a 19 to 35.
Show us that picture of Matt. I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's Matt.
Oh man,
That's cool.
Yeah, it's the old one where it says it's for a class B or C engine rather than just a 19 to 35. So in theory, I could stick a 60 on it and it would still be within the criteria. But I suppose if you were thinking of something like a super cyclone, or it would probably be the power of it.
You have a little problem with your pitch center of gravity, but no.
But yeah, in theory, yeah. But it's very old. But
There was a contest once back in the late 50s, mid to late 50s, to guess how many ringmasters had been sold. And I was about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, and I made a guess of 250,000. I was 6th or 7th place in the contest. I got a Maverick, a Sterling Maverick, which was an awful airplane, but I got a kit in the mail. I was all excited because I won a prize in a contest.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What size?
A lot more than 250,000 at that point. But it shows you how many people were flying control line.
yeah. Well, they say it's the most produced kit of all time. We're trying to get our models ready for the Ringmaster-a-thon, and yeah, it must be over 1 million now, I imagine.
Life on that. That was the most produced kit, sure. Absolutely.
So many different versions now. Some of them are quite outlandish, the size that we've got to.
Billy Stark had one up at the Circle Burners yesterday. He had a Super Ringmaster, a very nice job, but he must have had, it was a tanker version, because I think he flew for about 20 minutes. It was like the intercontinental version. Good grief, I thought we were going to have to shoot him down. Yeah, he was having fun.
When I was building my Sterling Yak 9, it was my first Sterling kit, and Ken Cook on Cox Engine forums, where I hung out back then mostly, Ken Cook got on and helped me out with a few things, and his experience with Ringmasters, which was about the same as the Yak 9 as far as a lot of the construction went, was to leave out the spar. Don't put the spar in it, that it really didn't need it, and that if you do put it in, it's more of a liability and a nose-in crash for ripping the ribs up. In fact, he named that spar the Rib Ripper. So following Ken's instructions, I did not put the spars in it. Hadn't never had any trouble flying it, and it's plenty stiff, it seems to me. But what are y'all's feelings on that? I notice every Ringmaster somebody on here shows us it's got the Rib Ripper, I mean the spar in it.
My take on that is don't crash the airplane, you'll have a problem.
Are you talking about the slotted ribs?
You know, that spar just is there for assembly. That's what I was told. So you cut your little notch out, you assemble, you put your spar through, and then you put your leading edge on and your trailing edge on and line it up with the slots.
Yeah.
It makes it easy to put together. So we went ahead and put the spar notch on all of them, and it'll just make, what we did is we cheated. We used glue gun and tacked them all in place. And then after they were tacked, then went through and used the white glue. And where Otto's cut the slots, and maybe the Gorilla Glue to fill up all the big slots that he's cut.
Are you talking about this one, Rusty? Got the slotted.
Yeah, that's
Is
the one.
that a stock size spar in that one?
Except that's not shaped like the spar on my yak. It was a square stick. I think it's spruce too, but yeah, it's got a square, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch.
Yeah, this one's like I would say 1/4 inch by half or something like that,
or 3/8. Yeah.
I don't know. This was oh hell, what's his name? I done forgot. That's shit.
What, Joe?
Mike Donovan. Mike Donovan built this ringmaster.
Oh wow, Mike Donovan.
Yeah, this was my first real full ringmaster a buddy of my club gave me.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, I have the video of me trying to invert it on the second flight and just exploding the nose. So I stripped it down, and when I stripped it down, I noticed that the nose doubler here, it's got a nice little wobble to it. Yeah, I mean it's all fuel soaked. This thing, I don't know how many flights this plane ever had, but I'm gonna try some biscuit joints to try to revive it and try to make something nice out of it. It was nice when I got it, I promise you. Nice after I flew it.
When I built the yak, the guy that gave it to me, it was Ron Cribbs from Cox Engine Forums. He gave me my first Fox 35, and knowing after reading about them that they were such shakers, I put a big fat center rib in it to help stabilize everything.
I had a Yak 9 kit when I was a kid, and it was probably around 50, 58 or 59, 50, 57, 58, someplace in there. My dad got me one for Christmas, and my older brother, who was kind of in and out of modeling, Red Reinhardt, who worked for my dad at the time, was over, and my brother kind of said he could build an airplane overnight and have it ready to fly the next day. And Red took the bet, and my brother didn't have an airplane to build, so he said, "Could I have your yak?" And I said, "Well, no, it's my Christmas present." So he kind of browbeat me until I gave him the yak, and he worked all night long and did an awful job on it, but he did get it done overnight, and he did fly it and won the bet with Reinhardt. But then instead of buying me a new kit, he gives me this yak that was a job, So
Did it have paint on it?
I don't want this,
No.
Did it have any paint on it?
Yeah, it was black and white. You put white paint on the silk span, and it was amazing. They could build it overnight with Ambroid. I mean, even today with CA, it would be a job to build an airplane overnight. But they got it done, and he flew it the next day, and it flew okay.
Yeah, kudos to him. I could not possibly build a plane overnight.
I did it many a time. I actually did that one, and me and my son Max built this Hellcat in 2 days before the Nats. He said, "I'm not taking my old model to the Nats. I want a new model." And so we built this Hellcat. And it wasn't Max, it was Otto. And we built this thing in 2 days. And we never even tested it. We took it straight to the Nats, and he flew it, and he did well with it. It was surprising. At one stage, I think one of the wheels came off, but otherwise the thing flew really well. And then he flew the Hellcat against me in scale in Hamilton a few months after it, and nearly beat me, apart from the fact that the battery went flat for the 2.4 gigahertz controller to control the throttle, and he lost his throttle control. He was stuck at 1/3 throttle for his flight. He would have beat me otherwise with his 2-day model. The only thing is, it got wet when we were flying it at Hamilton, and the covering started coming off the wings. So we'll have to recover it, which is a bit of a shame.
My RC club once had a pylon race. We were going to have a pylon race. And you could fly what you brung. Anything you wanted, you could fly. And so I got plans for Dick Sarpolis's Speedo, which is a little shoulder wing racer, single aileron. And I built that overnight. And I mean, it was monocoated and checkerboard. It was a really nice looking airplane. And I worked all night long hopped in the car the next morning. It was raining. It was windy. Went up to the field. There was only one other guy there. And it was a guy with a swizzle stick, which is kind of like the trainer kind of airplane. It probably went about 25, 30 miles an hour. I had this little thing with a racing 32 on, or 28 on it, and a tune pipe. And I revved it up and launched it. And by the time I launched it, it was about a speck at the end of the field. The thing was so fast.
Boy.
I couldn't even get it down to the course at speed. And he kind of just puddle jumped around the course and annihilated me. I had an airplane that was 10 times or 100 times faster than his, probably. It was doing like 150 miles an hour. He was doing about 20 miles an hour. And he beat me. Because he could stay on the course. I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, the tortoise and the hare.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Well, when I was young, I'd do that thing. I'd stay up overnight, either finishing models or repairing models. And often the workmanship wasn't that great, but you were just happy as a young kid. You were just happy to have this thing built ready for the next day's flying. And
You're not flying.
Yep. And we'd take our bikes and take our models on the back of our bikes, and that's where we came to grief sometimes too. You crash your bike and your model was part of the crash. And oh yeah, it was frustrating.
Taking model airplanes on bikes, and I had a little red radio flyer wagon, and I used to take my airplane up to the school field and fly it. You know.
Yeah, I've used a radio flyer wagon for pulling mine across the street to the church. Mm-hmm. On Stunthangar, there's a section about odd things that have happened to your models, and one guy writes about building his first, I don't know if it's his first airplane or his first ringmaster, but he's riding to the field with it on his bicycle, and the lead outs get caught in the spokes of the bicycle, and it just reels it in and eats it to shreds. And
oh my God. You know, my father had a Vico Squaw, and it was the early one, the Polywog wing version back in the 50s, and had a Made Lousy 49, Made Well 49 converted to glow, so we called them Made Lousies. Pride and joy. It looked like a 1930s Army trainer. Had yellow wings and a olive drab fuselage and red, white, and blue on the rudder. You know, he did a nice job on it, and it was a nice airplane. And of course, it was implied that I was never to touch that airplane. You know, well, my neighbor across the street goaded me into flying it one day. So we took it down to the local park and run out the lines and fueled it up and got out there, and he let go of it. Except I ran the lines out. I just never connected them to the airplane. So the thing takes off and it goes straight up about 300 or 400 feet. We're right next to a highway, and it's flying around. And of course, I'm contemplating all the kinds of punishment I'm going to get that night, you know. And the airplane came straight down, and just before it hit, you know, the controls must have moved, and it pancaked and went into the high grass and broke the prop. That's all it did.
Man, lucky you.
I took the airplane home, and I found another prop that looks about, you know, the same amount of oil soakage on it. Put it on the airplane, rehung it on the wall, and I lived in fear for the next couple of months that he was going to figure out, or somebody would tell him that I was down there flying it. You know? I told him about it when he was like 82 years old or something, and he got a kick out of it. You know?
That's funny.
I thought I was going to die that day.
Oh, yeah, and you had plenty of time to think about all the scenarios while it was up there flying around by itself.
I could feel the, and he had like a super clown fuselage that he used to spank me with. That was his little board of education, you know. Yeah. And I knew that I was going to get it that night, but it never happened. So.
Jack Snively's put on. I noticed that the junior ringmasters these days don't have wing sheeting that was on the old ones. They were almost full sheeted, I think he said. But I suppose they've just shortened the production process.
Jack wrote that, said, I noticed the junior ringmaster nowadays don't have the wing sheeting on the old ones, but I didn't do my YouTube duty and keep y'all informed of what's being posted over there.
I had a real nice little Ringmaster Junior with a Fox 19 on it, and it was nose heavy, but it was a good little airplane.
The little Fox 19s were quite light, like the Fox 35. They're nice and light. I've got a few models with the Fox 35, and I know you were saying, Rusty, before they vibrate. And I had one that was a really bad vibration. I thought, why is this thing vibrating more than all the others? And then I pulled the prop off and realized it was this huge hub, and I had put this, I don't know why, I must have just been test fitting it, and I had this huge hole in the hub, and it was way off center. And of course, I put a prop on with a normal size hole in it, and the problem went away.
I bet it was vibrating. Yeah.
Oh, it was vibrating something wicked. Yeah.
I had a Fox 19 on a J. Roberts Swift. You remember that airplane, Rusty?
I've heard the name, but no, I don't know what it is.
I learned the pattern on it. It was a J. Roberts Swift with a Fox 19. I flew that. I must have flown that airplane 3,000 flights because it finally just fell apart from oil soakage.
My first Fox 19 was on this. It's a aeromodeler. That's the nose of it. I wonder I'll have to rebuild it.
It was an awful short airplane.
Very short airplane.
And there's not much wing area either.
Nice Airstream wheel, the Airstream wheels, what the team racers love. They like those.
We call those grass cutters.
Yeah, yeah. But it was a neat model, and I flew it to death. It was all fuel soaked, and in the end, the rest of it got burnt except the nose, which I kept for prosperity. And when I had the big clean through my parents' attic the other week, I dug that out.
I think the worst fuel-soaked plane I've got is a tiny little half-A plane made for a baby, Walt Musiano, little devil. I think that's what it's called.
A red devil, maybe?
A hollow log. And yeah, I think it was a little devil, but that was a pretty fun little plane. It was wild, especially if you flew a little bit tail heavy. It could be a handful with a fast running engine. And that was before I understood fully what balancing, the nose weight was all about. And I had broken the rear of the fuselage off, and I said, how I'll fix this thing so it'll never break again. And I patched it with a piece of bent sheet metal to fit it. And that made it really nose heavy. And so I put it up in the air, and it was like the wildest roller coaster I ever flew. And didn't think it was ever going to run out of gas. When it finally did, my wife said, boy, that looked like a fun flight. And I said, fun. I could barely walk after that, but I flew the tank out. So
I had a Flight Streak Junior, and I had a Torque 23 on it. And I, in a moment of idiocy, one of my many moments of idiocy, I attached the handle to the lead outs and the engine started and let it go. And I spun around in circles till that engine ran out of fuel.
Oh, no.
And I was so dizzy. I was trying to get it, but I couldn't. I just went round and round.
Were that 3-foot lines, or were they?
No, it wasn't even 3 foot. It was the lines, the handle attached to the lead outs.
Yeah, the handle right on the tip of the wing.
Your arm.
You're lucky that son of a bitch didn't come in at you and cut you to pieces, Bob.
Yeah, I bet he was scared as hell to try to stop it, but
I've done a lot of stupid things, but that ranks right up there,
I got a question for you, Bob.
Yeah.
Since you're my personal engineer, when you put adjustable trim tabs on, I see that most people put them on the outside wing.
Yeah.
I see that Wendy puts them on the inside wing or puts them on both.
I don't put any adjustable trim tabs on. I put the vertical CG where it belongs. You don't need them.
Oh, okay.
As long as it's an accurate wing. We had this discussion on Friday night, and it wasn't on. It couldn't get posted because of the hurricane and everything. The power went out, but we still had a discussion. And I think it's worth going through a little bit again, Rusty. Do you think?
Yeah, sure, because it's something that is easy to overlook. A lot of people don't realize it.
Hey, Steve, you'll be able to identify with this, I'm sure, because you know Sam's airplanes and things. Have you ever noticed that stunt ships, when you take them out, or anything with a flap on it, but mostly competition stunt airplanes, by and large, they all fly with the outboard wing slightly upright and slightly down inverted. It's never the other way around. It's always the outboard wing upright,
Yeah.
and slightly down inverted. And everybody says, "Oh, I got to warp in the wing. I got to adjust the tab or bend the flaps." And when you do that, you can get the airplane to fly level, sort of, but it never feels comfortable. It always feels like it's fighting itself. And what the problem is vertical center of gravity. You have the head of the engine, the pipe, the coupler, the wheels, whatever, below the center of the airplane. And the CG is low. And since it's tethered at the lead outs, right, the airplane is attached to the wires at the lead outs, and you're going around in a circle, you have centripetal force. And the airplane, you know, the weight that's below the vertical center of gravity naturally goes outward. And since it's tethered at the lead outs, it has nothing, you can't do anything else but push the outboard wing up.
Oh, okay.
Right? And when you're inverted, it pushes the outboard wing down. It's just the vertical CG is in the wrong place. And the reason I found out about this is when I went to the electric thing, I could move the battery up and adjust the vertical CG easily, where you can't do it in glow, because, you know, if you move the tank up, engine's going to run different upright versus inverted, and it's going to burn off anyway, right? Fuel's going to burn off anyway. But with electric, you can do a finite adjustment, moving the battery up. And when I did that, I was able to take out all the adjustment I had in the airplane when it was glow. You know, that Genesis Extreme I was flying.
Yeah.
I had a glow system in it, and it always had to have adjustment. And I took all the adjustment out of the airplane, and it flew so much better. Werwage said it was the best flying airplane he's ever flown.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
only because, you know, we didn't have any trim to hold the wing level.
All right. Yeah, because even with Samantha's,
We put the Band-Aid on the wrong wound, you know.
yeah. Well, what happened was because with Samantha's airplane, the same thing was happening, and they said it was a warp in the flaps, and we cut the flaps while we were there in France, and actually made a trim tab off the flap and moved it down and re-glued it. But it had the battery loaded from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't get it up any higher in the airplane, so it was setting down like the pipe in the engine.
Yeah, that's going to cause a vertical CG. You really need to make provisions, you know, when you build them, so you can adjust them at least, I would say at least 1/4 of an inch up from where the battery is sitting, right on the center line of the airplane. You know, it's balanced on the center line. You want to be able to move it up at least 1/4. My airplanes, I can move up 1/2 inch if I want to, but really an 1/8 of an inch is a tremendous amount. It gives you a very, because, you know, the battery weighs like 10 ounces. So you're going to get a tremendous amount of differential when you move it up even an 1/8 of an inch.
All right, because it was like with that ARF Vector, that 40 Vector.
Mm-hmm.
That airplane flew right off the bench. I mean, we didn't change no damn tip weight in it, nothing, and it didn't do that, and it didn't fly, you know. And I'm like, wow, the first airplane that flies great. Well, then the other one, I'm like, what the hell we do wrong? This thing goes back and flies like the other ones, but that was a top loading battery.
Yeah, you can move it up a little bit. Yeah.
How it was perfect, and it didn't do that.
Those Vectors, by and large, are pretty good flying airplanes.
Yeah, and for some reason with that battery I had in it and stuff like that, I must have just got lucky and hit the vertical CG and the you know. But Samantha said, yeah, it doesn't wag the wings when you turn real hard.
Yeah,
because that must make it go back and forth on that.
Yeah, you're getting a hinging.
Yeah. You know,
and it's probably from that CG too. You whack it real hard and it tries to pull out, and you pull it back in with the lines. And
absolutely. You know, another thing too. You know, that proposal on those spider wire lines, spectral lines, failed. It had to be 60% to pass, and it failed. And it's too bad, because have you ever flown on those?
Oh yeah, we fly on them all the time. We never had a set fail.
Yeah, well, they're not going to fail. the combat guys have been using them all along. But here's an interesting thing. You think about it. The weight of the lines. We've been so used to the deficiencies that the weight of our lines cause because there's no way to change it. We've had to live with it all these years.
Yeah.
When you're flying along level and you're doing a lap and you're ready to pull up, let's say, into a wing over or a square loop or something, right? And the lines are going at a certain speed and they have weight to them. And when you turn the corner, the airplane's going up, but the lines are still going horizontal. And what it does is it pulls the inboard wing down and the outboard wing up. That causes a hinging right there. And when you put on those spectral lines and do the same thing, there's no hinging at all.
So, who did the testing on them spectral lines?
Tommy Hampshire did seminal testing on those, and he wrote the proposal, but it failed.
Oh, the proposal failed. The lines didn't fail.
No, the lines didn't fail. I flew his airplane. It's amazing how well it flew on those lines.
Yeah, because I talked to Bob and Bob and the guy that went to France there, and they didn't like him. And it's like, why don't you like him? I talked to a guy that was in fish, did fishing and stuff like that, and he said, if we use them in fishing where we get paid by how big a fish they catch and stuff like this, he goes, why would we use them if we had more failures than we did with metal lead out? He said that the metal lead out was like 90% more than with spectral lines.
You're talking about lead outs, not.
You're comparing apples to bowling balls, so it depends on the.
Really are. Hey guys, I had to jump in here when I heard Bob start talking about spectral lines. I've been watching from YouTube. I was very disappointed as well that it didn't get.
Yeah, I voted for it, and so did Joe Daly, and so did Rick Huff, but I guess enough people didn't want it. So.
Well, if there had only been 10 guys on the contest board and not 11, I guess it would have passed because we need 60%, and 6 out of 11 is not 60%. It's a shame.
Combat guys have been using them for years, and they love them.
I've been using them for years, Bob. I've been in the fray in this.
Have you ever had a failure with it?
I have, and I tell you, the only one that I had a flyaway in a combat match, the line broke at the lead out guide. That's one of the things you have to watch with them. If you're not running lead outs and looking directly to a bell crank like you are with a combat plane, you have to watch for wear on the lead out guide. That 2 or 3 right there. So actually, it was at last year. I got in a line tangle with somebody and lost line tension. And when it regained line tension, it broke right there at the lead out guide.
Just right there, yeah.
Right there. The other one, the other spectral line that I broke wasn't really a line break. A connector opened up on it after losing line tension. It was a slide type connector on a half-A plane, and so that doesn't really count as a spectral failure. And then the only other one I ever broke, we tested some of the line that Brett showed a picture of. Here, I have it right here. Let me get flipped around.
While you're looking for it, let me just say I've got thunder and lightning moving back in. So if I disappear, it'll be the same routine. I'll post a new link to restart the show over on Stunthangar unless it's right at closing time.
Okay. So this is the very first stuff that Larry Davis and I played around with about 7 years ago after we found out about Spectre line. And you see it's Spectre Extreme Braid, and there's some Chinese on there. However, it does not anywhere on here say Spectre trademarked by the Honeywell Corporation. So I'm pretty sure this is Chinese counterfeit stuff. Okay. Not a deal. I had one.
That was why some of the people on the board were concerned because you couldn't guarantee where it came from, that it was indeed good stuff.
This is the only line out there that says Spectra Extreme Braid on the label. Okay, Honeywell doesn't make line; they own it's their proprietary way of manufacturing. They own the trademark on Spectra. But I did have this break at a knot. this stuff did break at a knot. And we found out this was a lot stretchier than the Power Pro stuff. This thing had a lot more give to it. We gave up on this pretty quick about 7 years ago. I just use it now for tying booms and hinging elevators and stuff like that. But
well, you can't. Yeah, that's what I use too, right there.
Power Pro.
But what it is that you can't guarantee manufacture of anything. I mean,
not even metal lines.
Right.
But
Exactly. So that's
the wording is weird on it because they say Spectra. There is no line called Spectra. There's a brand called Power Pro that uses 100% Spectra trademark. Even this other one here, and see, this is made by Innovative Technologies. They're the company that manufactures this 100% Spectra trademarked fiber, but it's under the brand name Power Pro. Now, in the combat proposal, they didn't get into all that. They just said Spectra. Okay, so and it was generally accepted that Power Pro was the brand to use because it was the only brand that had 100% Spectra fiber listed on the label. So everybody, you know, somebody asked, how do you make sure you're using the right stuff? Who checks it? Who does this? I've never seen a CD at a combat contest ask for proof of what you're flying, or for that matter, measuring lines.
Right.
But everybody's on the up and up. They're all using Power Pro, and they all using 100-pound stuff because it still has to meet the same nominal line diameter. That's why we're using 100-pound, because it measures 18 thou. Technically, we could fly on 60 pounds. That would more than meet the pull test requirement. Combat rule, you still have to meet the nominal line diameter the same. So, I'm all with Brett as far as let's get rid of all that line diameter stuff and let's
go with pull test.
Go to a pull test, and if your terminations work, you're good to go.
And the argument is that AMA is going to put a big pushback on this. But here's what you say to AMA. We've had the World Championships held at AMA's site, and the World Championships were run under FAI rules. Not only did you not have to have a specified size line, it just had to pass the pull test, but also you could fly without safety thoughts. I mean, if you're flying under a certain rule, and nobody had any problems, So, yeah, I believe that if we were to write this proposal properly, and I guess Keith already has written a proposal.
Okay.
To go with a 10G.
Can I
test.
Can I add something else?
Sure.
Another thing, just my experience. A lot of combat guys process every first.
Losing you a little bit.
Am I still there?
We're losing your vocal.
Yeah, your audio's getting faded out.
How about now? Is that better?
A little better.
Yeah.
You need to turn it up.
Let me get closer to my Wi-Fi booster.
There you go.
Okay, sounds better.
Okay. All right. So a lot of guys, there was a lot of confusion too, even in the combat world, because everyone automatically assumes all G-Stump lines are the same. They're not. Spectra is a U.S. American brand, trademarked by Honeywell. Power Pro is the brand that uses Spectra. Dyneema is actually a Dutch company, and it's a different type of line. And guys think they're the same. Well, they're not. Spiderwire is not the same. Spiderwire is not Spectra. Okay, it may be made with the same process. It's a high gel spun molecular fiber, I think is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they might be manufactured the same, but in the combat rules, it says Spectra line. It doesn't just call out any G-Stump line. It specifically says Spectra.
Good point.
So I always assumed it to be, you better be using Spectra fiber, not Dyneema, not Spiderwire, or any of these other ones, because Power Pro is the only line that says Spectra on the box.
What does the general rules allow them, and what does the general rule in the general control line rules? What does it say?
It's pretty much the same about Spectra line, and then it just has the it says Spectra line and G-Stump And then it has model weights and filament sizes that you're allowed to use based on how many ounces the model is.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that is like everybody has a box of Kleenex that aren't made by Kleenex.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where Spectra came out first. So everything is a Spectra line.
Right. It's not. That
Right. It is a brand name. You know, they're facial tissues. They're not Kleenexes. You know, but everybody says you got a Kleenex.
It's a trademark name, not a product that you buy.
And we're opening a can of worms here because, you know, the next step is somebody's going to say, well, if you have to have the proof that you have the exact stuff that you're supposed to have, then you're going to have line specs on metal lines as well, and prove that you have the right metal lines.
Got to be the same for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah, and like I said, it doesn't seem to have been a huge issue in the combat world. I don't know. Maybe we're just more accepting of new technologies and use them.
That's what it is. Is that with Stunt, if anything comes out new, they don't want it.
That's right. It seems to be the, you know, well, they're erring on the side of caution. I understand that. I'm not arguing with that. But you know what? Combat guys have been using it for a long time and been totally successful with it. And I just don't see why, and the general rules allow it. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you're going to run a local contest, your CD, as long as you put out on the flyer ahead of time that we're going to allow the use of Spectral brand, that brand line, it's legal. But I wonder why we can't do that at every contest. Just put it on the flyer.
I've seen the handles break, the wire in a handle break. I've seen metal lines break so many times.
Yeah, especially those multi-strand, those 19-strand ones or whatever. Yeah. Those things are too easy.
And what it is that they all break. But usually, if you have enough pound rating on the second line, it's either going to loop in one way or dive in and just it's done when the line breaks.
I can tell you that works because I had that happen.
Right. So I've seen a lot of line breaks, but I've never seen a Spectra line or whatever you want to call that stuff break. I've never seen one break at a tie at the knot or anything else. And if they have, it wouldn't be near as much as metal.
Well, we don't have enough sampling in the stunt world either. I mean, the combat world, they certainly do. We don't have enough sampling to say, they're not breaking or whatever. I don't suspect they will. I think what people are concerned about is if you get a situation where an airplane free flights and it hits the end of the line, a shock, but that's the same with the metal line. It's going to do the same thing there too.
Oh yeah, I had a pair of 15,000s, brand new, one flight at Brodak. Mike Paris was flying it. It came at him, come across the circle, hit the end of the lines, broke both lines off, and it landed in the other circle. Didn't hit anybody.
We had just as many flyaways on braided cable lines as we did on Spectra at the NAPS.
Yeah.
2. One on Spectra, one on cable.
Yeah.
And, just for comparison, people say they're not strong enough or they're worried about this. Phil Cartier flies his Nelson 36 big block fast on 100-pound Spectra, and he's been doing it for years.
Yeah.
It can handle a Nelson 36 at 125 miles an hour. I'm pretty sure they're safe for stunt.
Yeah.
And now there's a loop. Mike Stinson's got a really nice video. I don't know how many of you read that entire thread and kept up with that post, but Phil showed him a new knot last year or the year before at Huntersville. Well, it's not the new knot. It's just modified again, but where you end up with 2 loops on the end of the knot instead of 1.
Right. It all comes from fishing. Like I said, these guys who are fishing and making money at it, they're not going to be losing fish.
Mm.
And,
and it also comes.
That's their bread and butter, what they make their living out of. They know which knots work, which doesn't work, what line works, what doesn't work.
It also comes from kite flying, too. My buddy Larry found a lot of useful information on some kite flying sites, and we started sleeving our Spectra line at the terminations. The kite guys sell a really cool braided oversleeve that you run your Spectra through, and they make a really neat little fid
Mm-hmm.
To run that through and braid it through, so you're sleeving your spectral line, and then you go ahead and tie your knot just like you normally would.
Have you ever flown one of those big kites?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they pull like freight trains.
Yeah, they do. And when they get 3 or 4 of them together, they lift guys off the ground.
Yeah, I couldn't. I got a chance to fly one at an air show one day, and I told the guy for the control line, and he said, "Well, it's basically the same thing." And I couldn't believe how hard those things pull.
Sam and I fly a lot of kites, and I've got a couple of big parafoils in here in the garage. He's too little. Like 15-mile-an-hour wind, it would drag him across.
Yeah.
That's all I can do, and I'm 200 pounds, and I fly spectral line on those kites. Absolutely. And I don't. It's not a matter of breaking lines. Any airplane that loses line, regains line tension, has the possibility of breaking whatever line.
Yeah, that's shock. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you bend the little, you do that to your glider lead out. So that's a 50-pound one, and they're very easy to bust. And the other day we had one, Otto was flying a 35 size combat model, and he just did a wing over and he lost line tension, regained it, snapped the lines. But we've been using the cheap stuff. This is Chinese, and it's obviously inferior to the Power Pro one, but it's thicker, so it still withstands the pull test. But I'm sure it's draggier, it's thicker, but it's got a nice round cross section. That's the only thing.
Well, long story short, the answer is to go like FAI and just go to a 10G pull test. If it passes a pull test, you can fly on spider. You can fly on cobweb if you want to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Talk about the drag, like that 100-pound stuff, because it's so thick or whatever. For sport flying, I've started using this other Powered Pro, this new one called Max Quattro.
Oh yeah.
100-pound test, but this is 20 thinner than their regular 100-pound test. All Quattro is 25% thinner than just regular. Benefit pound line, but the diameter of what 60-pound line is.
Well, the drag is one thing, and that's a significant thing. But the other thing is the weight of metal line versus line, and it's the weight with the inertia in them that's causing, when you turn a corner, you're getting a hinging because the line keeps going in the direction it was going in.
It's a huge difference. I know flying, it just feels like your model's so much lighter above you. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. So you go to this line. I flew Tom Hampshire's Kingfisher on the Spectre, what do you call it? And I couldn't believe how little hinging the airplane had, how much it maintained its tension at the top of square loops and things like that. It was amazing. Just amazing.
Oh, Bob, you don't know much about flying stunt.
What's that?
I said, what do you know about flying stunt, man?
Yeah, I'm trying.
I use Power Pro on all my bass rods, on all of them, including my Mag Heavy Frog rod. And you pull a 1-pound bass, and you get 10 pounds of freaking. You could call it seaweed, hydrilla, whatever you want, and the line don't snap.
Yeah,
I love that.
Kids at home.
It's time to change the rules here.
I think if more guys would just try them, they would be impressed with them and use them. Because I'll tell you what, anyone in combat who's ever used them is not flying steel lines anymore. They may box, okay? And we all do that because there is one issue with them flying in combat. Steel lines against spectral lines is not good, okay? It's not good for steel lines. What ends up happening is if you get in a line tangle, they will curly cue those lines. They'll look like a tail when they're done. They will ruin a set of steel lines. The advantage is with the Spectra is you can still have control of your airplane. There's no binding, but the steel lines will bind up. So a lot of guys pissing and moaning in the beginning, and some of them still refuse to fly Spectra lines. They still bitch and moan about having to fly a match against somebody with Spectra lines because they think it's an unfair advantage. Well, if it's unfair, get a pair and start using them. You know. Did we lose everybody?
No, you're good.
No, we're here. Your audio is pretty in and out, but we're still making out what you're saying pretty much.
Okay. So
We're in total agreement, Mike.
that was one of the biggest gripes was, you know, they're unfair. It's an unfair advantage. If it's such an advantage,
Go to them.
Well, at least carry a set. So if you have to fly someone with Spectre lines, you can pull out your set and fly them.
That's what people are saying about electric too. They say, "Oh, it's an unfair advantage." Well, if it's unfair, but it's legal, so just go to it. If you think it's better, just use it. You know.
I agree. And everyone who says they're no good and this and that, they haven't tried them.
They haven't tried them. Exactly right.
They just haven't tried them. And
well, I got to admit, I was skeptical until I flew Tom's airplane, and I watched him fly it. I saw how much improvement he had in his flying with them, and then I went and tried him on that airplane. I was blown away.
And going back to what you said about, you know, a CD can approve them for a contest. I've already spoken to a CD of one contest that I attend, and he's okay with doing that going forward. Like you said, as long as you announce that it's legal rules. It's a little too late now for this year, but going forward, that's just something we need to push for. And I think if we get some guys out there flying them, these other stunt guys see it, maybe they'll come around.
Now, the only time things change is when the old guys die and leave their.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Samantha's all the time. She said, "Dad, why won't they do anything that's better or whatever?" I said, "Because they're old. They're set in their ways, and this shit ain't gonna change." I said, "Someday, if you live long enough, you'll be able to change things. But as long as they're in charge, the shit ain't gonna change."
Well, here's an interesting concept. We know that if you're a contest director of a local contest and you put it on your flyer, since it's in the general rules that you're going to allow this, it's okay. What if the event director at the Nationals decided to do that and announced that we're going to fly under the general rules for this line instead of the 322 rules, stunt rules?
Well, let's get Mark Weiss to do that next year.
Well, you know, I can affect that to a degree because I make a lot of wings for him. If he doesn't want them to slow roll and take off, you know, he's gonna.
Well, let's get Mark.
No, that's the only way. You know, it's going to take younger people, you know, to do things. That's just like with phones or whatever. I still hate my smartphone. You know, and I
see that young, so
right. And I swear to God, when I'm done working, I won't have a smartphone. I'll have a flip phone. I'll have a, you know, cellular phone, but I ain't gonna have one of them things. But it's because I'm old. I don't want to change. I don't want to learn that shit. I don't want to. It doesn't interest me.
Do you want to stop everybody else from using a smartphone though?
No, they can have them. You know, Samantha loves them. It didn't bother me as bad when Samantha was home because she could fix my phone and show me what I was doing wrong and all this kind of stuff. But now she's off to college. I'm left to my own devices, and I got to go to the damn Verizon store and say, "Hey, what the hell did I do?"
Don't you have a neighbor that's like 12 or 13 around?
No, they're all old people that live by me, and none of us can work our phones.
You can program your TiVo and everything, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Samantha came home this weekend and got my Roku working again, so I could get Hulu and shit like that. Because I had it all screwed up, and I couldn't get nothing that I wanted. It kept bringing me something. She goes, "Dad, you just got to do the left one over, then you can get to that." And I'm like, "Why doesn't it give me arrows and tell me where I got to go?" It's just, but I had it all messed up. She got it working. So hopefully I can keep it working till she comes back again.
Well, I think it's pretty crappy that just one guy, one vote is keeping the rest of the control line community from using a new technology.
I totally agree with you. I'm so pissed off at this.
Which really isn't that new. I mean, all I got to do is talk to Phil Cartier, man, and whoever Phil worked with. Phil wrote the proposal with somebody else, one of the other East Coast guys, and he's got oodles of data on this stuff. He published
Tom Hampshire. I think it was Tom Hampshire.
He published it once, pull tests and knot ratings, rated strength of the line with this kind of knot, kind of knot. I mean, have you heard of any? If I hadn't told you I had a flyaway with Spectraline, would anybody have known that there's been flyaways? I mean, and I haven't seen really any other ones. You know, I mean, I'm willing to say, yeah, I had one, and it's because it broke at the lead out guide.
Right.
That's something you got to look for. So I'm telling people that. So, hey, if you run them to the belt crank, make sure you look at the lead out guide. What I started doing was, after a season, I flip my lines around. I run them the other way. And then
the other thing, you might have to use like a plastic or a.
I just throw them out when I'm done.
You may have to get rid of the metal and go with a porcelain guide or some other type of material.
Pre-flight your plane before you put it in the air every day.
It's a plywood guide that's, you know, it's got a nice radius on it, and I paint it nice, but
let's go to another subject which is related to this, and something else I have a real problem with.
Builder of the model?
Huh?
Builder of the model?
I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. But I do want to go to the pull test rule. Okay? Pull tests do more damage to airplanes and control systems than just flying the airplane.
Right.
And you're compelled to pull test before each official flight, right?
Yeah.
Safety. How many hundreds of practice flights are flown at the Nationals and nobody pull tests their airplane before the flight?
Buddy.
Right? So here's a proposal I want to make. That, okay, you got to have a pull test. So you go and you pull test your lines the first day on your first flight, the first official flight. And the pull test guy then puts a little tag, a coded tag, at the handle end through the eyelet or around the eyelet, and it certifies that those lines have been pull tested. And the only time you have to re-pull test is if you have to change your lines and that tag is not on there, then you have to re-pull test. Other than that, pull test once at the beginning of the contest, and you're good to go for the whole contest.
Well, the other thing I said is that why aren't we pull testing the lines and we're pull testing the airplane every time?
Why are we pull testing the lines every time?
Well, I know, but I mean, if we need to pull test the lines, why aren't we just pull testing lines?
Oh, you're not pull testing the lines, you're pull testing the belt crank too.
Yeah, the lead out, everything in there.
That's what's doing damage to the inside of that airplane.
The more damage it does to the airplane.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It does. You know, every time you pull test a new set of lines, you got to end up pull testing your airplane. When we were there in France, the guy got the pull test wrong. He pulled me off my feet with Samantha's airplane. And that's a take apart. And that whole setup is a whole lot different. You can't, you got a hole in a certain spot and stuff like that. And he pulled me off my feet and I said, hey, how hard are you pulling? And he goes back, oh, I'm sorry. And then he pulls regular.
My point is, though, if you
pull the whole system right out of the airplane.
If you pull test it once and everything works, right? Yeah. Why should you have to pull test it over? How many times? I mean, have you ever flown an airplane that pulls as hard as the pull test?
No.
Well, there you go.
Well,
you know?
Close. My pulse jet pulls pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing I think needs to be changed. All you need to do is pull test them once and put a tag on the line that says these lines have been pull tested. And, you know.
I know they're at the Nats. I think it was Jeff Trexler. He'd flown that day, got pull tested and all that kind of stuff, went out for a practice and that cable and his handle broke and his airplane crashed. It was like, holy shit. You know? It's like, I guess it was just one away, you know, but maybe it was the flexing of it that made it break and not the straight pull on it. Yeah. That when it pulled on an angle, it run it across that handle one last time and broke that cable. Mm-hmm. But I mean, all that shit's going to break, but usually it only breaks one line and the airplane crashes.
That's true.
I've never seen anybody lose a line or whatever and have a flyaway. I have it in combat where they get cut or whatever and they fly away to where You know,
I've seen a couple of flyaways and stuff where they got loose, they pre-flighted across the circle, they hit the end of the line and shocked it and broke both lines.
oh, okay,
I've seen that happen.
right,
Yeah, I've done.
Twice in 60 years of flying. You know?
right. And you'd be less of that happening with the Spectre lines because they stretch more. They have more give to them where they would tend not to break as easy as.
I'm going to disagree with you there. In Phil's testing, he tested it right up against 7-strand braided cable. Spectre line pulls the same amount. They give an inch and a half under 6 pounds or whatever table he had. Don't quote me on
Right,
that.
but there's pull strength and then there's tensile strength.
I understand that, but you're saying the Spectre line stretches more than cable. That's not true.
No, that's what I heard. Tommy said they don't stretch as much as cable.
Right. So I don't want that getting out there that they stretch more. They do
But
not.
why the fishermen say that they're actually yanking the guts out of fish because they don't have any give at all. They just,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Dyneema or spider wire because I don't know. I'm talking about Spectre line. It's not stretch. It's the same stretch as cable or less. Dyneema definitely has stretch because I've used it. It felt like your damn plane on a set of rubber bands.
most of the time I fly on solids because I like the way they don't stretch and they give me a very one-to-one feel. But if I had the option to go to this Spectra, I would do it. I would do it.
Where do you buy it?
Walmart.
Any place that sell fishing line? It's just fishing line.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've got to go now because my boys have got their school play tonight. But it's been great listening.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell your boys said hi.
Yep. Take it easy, Jerry.
Bye, Jer. I'm gonna punch you over.
I'll just say thanks, Mike, for putting the videos of the knocks and the pull tests and the information you've got because it'll help me put through a submission I've got to put through to our control line technical committee. And I'll use the information that we've talked about here as well to make our submission and see if we're successful in trying to push through a submission for alternative lines. So thanks, Phil. And I'll catch you.
Thanks for your contribution, Gerald. Good night.
Yeah, the only thing we can really hope for is that FAI passes them.
Yeah.
I think that's a big bucket, man, because the problem is there are so many types of this G-Sump line out there. You know, who's going to decide what's the right one? What's the brand? What do we all use? And even then, people are going to use the wrong shit.
Well, I'd say that what we're going to do is go to a 10G pull test. And if it passes the pull test, use whatever you want.
That's what needs to happen. If they want to write those in, that's the way it needs to happen.
I totally agree with that.
We can use that little line that comes with Cox airplanes.
The little Dacron line.
Background. Well, I'm building a new Caprice, and I'm making it out of all 16ths. I mean, it's going to be a fully sheeted, built-up wing, 16th-inch fuselage, 16th-inch shells. It's going to be the lightest thing I ever built in my life. And the concept here is electric power, the Power 10 size motor, and a 2200 milliamp pack. And the idea is to get it in at or under 40 ounces, so I can go down to 10,000 solids or 12,000 cables.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I flew yesterday a 40 ounce with the battery on board Gieske Nobler, one of those the Moon Brothers. What's the name of I forgot the name of their company. But it was a Chinese ARF, and the thing was feather light, and man, did it fly good. And it was on 15,000 cables. I'm thinking to myself, if I can put that on 10,000 solids, whew.
Well, that was one thing here with Dick. He had, because we always, they always fly in Spectre lines. And I haven't changed over just because I told him, I said, trimming's going to be way off when you go back to metal lines.
Yeah.
And they didn't believe it until they started 2 weeks before the Nats and were out there for hours and hours and hours retrimming airplanes to try to go back to the metal lines, and they never did.
This is where you need to have a little notebook and keep track of what, so you get back to square one quickly.
Well, what it was, he never could get the airplane to fly on metal lines as well as it did on the Spectres.
Well,
He couldn't. Right. He could not get it back. That airplane had never flown on metal lines before. And no matter what he did, he's like, it doesn't fly worth the crap. Go back to Spectre lines, back to where he had it, said it flies great.
Absolutely. Now, I've flown on those Ruslin's lines, those Ukrainian lines, those 4-strand brass-coated lines.
Yeah.
Brass-plated lines. Those are amazingly good. They're incredibly good. But, they still have the problem of inertia in the line, where the Spectre won't have that, Right. So.
In Dallas, I got pull tested twice before each flight.
Twice? Why?
My first official, I got pull tested, and before on the second round, I got pull tested.
Wow.
And he did it to everybody. So I wasn't segregated just because I smashed my twister.
Well, that's because you're from Louisiana and they don't trust you.
That's got to be, man. Some Texan people, bro. They
yeah. Go there in Texas.
We don't trust my friend Steve Millet, or Steve Millet, I don't know how he pronounces his last name. You know him?
Yeah, he's my coach.
He's one of my best friends in the world. I love him. He's a great guy. We talk all the time, mostly about music. He's a great musician.
Yeah, he's in my club. He's my primary stunt coach.
Yeah, I was talking to him while I was out at the NAC. I was helping him trim his airplane over the phone.
I missed his name. Who is it?
Steve Millet.
Yeah. I've always wondered how he is it Millet or Millet, Millet.
Millet, yeah. A lot of people call it Millet, but it's a Millet.
He always calls me Mr. Bob.
Yeah, in fact, I got.
He's a great guy. And Blanchard too?
John, yeah. He's my other one. In fact, John's the one that gave me that ringmaster, that Mike Donovan ringmaster.
He's another great guy.
Mm-hmm. John helped me out quite a bit. They all did. Everybody in the club did.
Great people.
In fact, me and John.
How about Donnie Melanson? You know him?
Melanson? He I never met him, but he don't fly no more.
I know. It's too bad. He's another good guy.
Steve's been trying to convince him to come back to.
And Steve, was it Ashford? John Ashford?
That's another one. I know the name. I heard the name before, but I don't actually.
John Ashford. That he had the polecat and the.
Yeah, he was a good builder.
Yeah, he had. I think RSM still makes some of his kits.
He's a big guy, and I mean a big guy, and 400 pounds at least, And we were both judging one nationals one year, so we were kind of hanging out together. So we went into Muncie here on McGalliard to it was a Chinese restaurant, and they had a all-you-can-eat buffet. And they saw him walk in the door, and they turned out the lights over the buffet.
Signs say all you can eat. You not eat all. You go now.
It's pretty funny. He says he's used to that, though. So he was
they weren't going to make no money off of him, huh?
What's that?
So they weren't going to make any money off of him.
He was a funny guy.
Look, Bob, check this out. I took this picture of John in El Dorado. I think it was near Profile.
John Blanchard?
Yeah, and he's doing Saturday Night Fever on launch.
It's not John Travolta, that's for sure.
Yeah. He ain't as graceful.
That's funny.
Hey, it's hard for me to signal a launch, man. I'm left-handed. It always looks weird. It looks like I'm swatting bugs, man.
What I do is I just lift my foot. That's how I don't even wave my arm. I just lift my foot.
With a combat plane, go like this. I raise my hand. I do this, like up, because they never know what the hell I'm.
And you think, and you better be careful in stunt though. The judges might think you're doing something like this,
flipping them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wayne gives me an underhanded.
My
like that. So.
My
watch
is not moving for me here. Why not?
Your video keeps going black. I don't know what's going on.
That's weird.
It's been coming and going for about 5 minutes.
Your video goes down.
All right. Okay. Yeah, the judges go like that,
Yeah. Well, that's like when I was in France. The damn guys on motorcycles signal turns with their feet. they don't use their blinkers. They, they signal with, if they take that right foot off the peg, they're going right. If they take the left one off, they're going left. It's like, well, why the hell don't they use their blinkers?
Because they're French.
Well, maybe because of, the blinkers on these sport bikes are about that big.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't hardly see them anyway, and they signal with their foot. So maybe they found it safer to signal with their foot than.
I don't find it safe to pick my foot up off either the brake or the shifter for just a however split second it is.
Yeah, not a good idea.
All right, so I got to get work early in the morning. Got my wing framed. I'm good.
I got to get up in the morning and build wings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how far are you along on that new Caprice, Bob?
I'm chipping it along. I got the cradle set done. I got the sides done and doublers on. And I built a really nice light stab and elevator, foam stab and elevator. It's really light, and it's coming along. I'm going to use titanium landing gear struts. Rick Huff has a argon environment in which he can bend titanium landing gear struts, and they're like a third of the weight of steel. So this is going to be all stops pulled to build a 40-ounce or under airplane with the battery on board. And I can fly it on 10 solids, because that's what Reinhardt and Scarinzi used to fly all their airplanes on back in the 50s, was 10,000 solids. And that's why they flew so good.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, back then, the music wire was a lot stronger than that stainless we're using today, so.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that stainless doesn't have anywhere near the tensile strength of that music wire from years ago. So,
tell us, what you know about bending titanium. You just said something that I didn't realize you had to have a special environment.
Yeah, it has to be bent in an argon environment, apparently, in order to do the kind of bends we need without cracking or reducing the strength of it or something, So
you've got a bending brake encased in some kind of a.
I don't know how he does it, but he's been using these titanium struts for a while on his airplane, and they're feather light. And Billy Werwage has somebody out there do it for him too. And apparently, you need an argon environment. I don't know what that means, but
I'll look it up on YouTube.
But it sounds cooler than hell,
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, you haven't been around the last couple of Hangouts. I know the other guys have seen them, but I'm going to show them to you.
Yeah.
A couple of new airplanes.
Oh, look at that.
That's SV-22 built by Alan Goff. That one. And then another SV-22 built by Alan Goff.
I like that one.
I bought both those airplanes.
Yeah. Are they built up wings?
They are, yeah.
Yeah, he built them in that Lost Foam set. I sold him a Lost Foam cradle set like 15 years ago, and he's been building wings in it ever since. He just ordered a brand new one finally. So I can't get rich off him.
The yellow one, actually, it looks almost geodetic with cap strips on it.
Yeah, it's Warren Truss.
Okay, yeah, and the other one is the same.
Yeah, they're Warren Truss.
Yeah, I guess the gray one is older. The yellow one is from 2012. And
yeah.
The silver one is a little bit older than that.
Are they called Petras or something? Does they have name Petra on them?
I don't see anywhere. There's just a USA and an AMA number, and the other one says the silver one hasn't. This one has an FAI sticker on the bottom of the wing.
Yeah, he flew it at the team selection.
Yeah, so.
He and Mike McHenry are building those, and I guess Roger Wildman was building them too until he passed away.
Well, I am on the hunt for a PA 61 or 65, and I've had no luck. I've advertised everywhere. So if you know of anyone has one willing to part with, I'd be all over it.
Out of my wheelhouse nowadays, you know that. So
yeah, I figured.
Nobody up here flies that stuff anymore. So.
Did you ever call Randy and find out if OS 46 will fit right in the same place?
No, I have not. I'm still holding out for a 61 or 65. Couple
years you'll be flying them.
Yeah, I guess. I don't want to wait that long.
You want to fly it now.
And the problem is what the funny part is you never see anybody flying on with a 61. They've all went to 75s, but they won't sell their 61s. They won't sell a 65. They just keep them, you know. And it's like I was telling you that at one airplane, I called up everybody, tried to find out anybody who wanted that whole airplane with that 61 set up in it. No one wanted it. My brother finally broke down and bought it because he's like, well, I really don't want it. But they came down to $200 for the whole setup.
Yeah.
And now that he's got it, he won't sell it. He'll probably never fly it, but now he can say, I got a PA-61 with a pipe.
You know, I've never flown anything in glow larger than a 51. That's the largest glow engine I've ever flown in stunt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could find a 40 or a 50 rear exhaust, it would fly that airplane.
Yeah, Bob, it's they had a 61 and a 65 in them, so I'm trying to put what.
Oh yeah.
Before I have.
But I believe the 40 and the 50 PAs are the same case.
They were. Everything up to even the 61 was the same case.
Yeah, everything was the same case except the 75.
Right.
So if you can get a 51 rear exhaust, it'll fly that thing like nothing. Because the 75 doesn't make any more horsepower than the 40. You can fly the same size airplane, you just turn the prop faster.
And you can fly it on thinner lines too.
Yeah. You know, it's just a deal to where
unless the weight is, well, of course that's no longer, you know, it's no longer by that, it's by weight of the airplane now. It used to be by the displacement of the engine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
How much do they weigh, Mike?
One is 61 ounces, the other is
now that's projected weight with the motor on board?
No, I'm sorry. One weighs 44 ounces. The yellow one weighs 44 ounces. The silver one weighs 50 ounces. That is with no motor in the airplane.
Either one of them is going to be lighter than 64 with the motor on board, probably, so you can fly on thinner lines and, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's what Sparky said. He said they'd both be under or right at 64 with a motor.
Yeah, if you can get 64 or under, you can fly on 15,000 cables, you know.
But, you know, put on there for a rear exhaust 50 or a 40. I seen like a Super Oriental, I think they call it. Super Oriental.
Oriental Plus.
Oriental Plus, that's what it was. Huge. And the guy had a PA-40 in it, and the thing weighed.
That's not a big airplane, you know. The Oriental Plus is like a 40 size airplane.
Oh, I thought the regular Oriental was like a 40 size, and then
it is. It's the same exact size. It's just got to take the wing.
Oh, I thought the Plus. I thought that one that we got down there says it's 700 and some square inches.
Gosh, no, unless somebody just blew one up, because I make a lot of wings for those, and they're not very big wings at all.
No, they're not. I mean, you fly an Oriental on a Fox 35, man.
Yeah, that's what it was designed for. It's 55-inch wingspan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yesterday.
It looked like a big airplane to me, and I forget what the thing weighed because it weighed 60 some ounces.
Well, somebody might have scaled one up or something, but the actual stock Oriental Plus isn't that big.
Okay.
I flew D's, the guy who designed it. I flew his out at VSC one year. He had a road jet in it, one of those small case 40s. I didn't like the engine at all, but the airplane flew very well. Very well.
What you didn't like about the road jet?
Had no power.
No power.
No, and it was the most inconsistent running thing I think I've ever flown.
What size was that one?
It was a 40.
Oh, a 40?
40 rear. And I had 4 of them. I bought 4 of them when he first brought it out. And I put it into the Genesis Extreme, and I had nothing but trouble. It cost me a team selection. I ended up not making the team because of that engine. And I sent it back to him, and he was, I got to give him credit. He went through it and said the blowdown timing was 6 degrees up. and he fixed it, and the engine did run better as far as characteristics are concerned, but then it had no power. So that never was a good engine, in my opinion.
See, like,
but I put that 40R ultralight Merlin, an engine has more nicknames than Apollo Creed and Rocky IV. I put that in there, and that flew very well, very well.
See, I just had the opposite. I never could get the damn Merlin engine to run worth a crap, and my the 40 Rojet. Once I put an OS number 8 plug in it, it runs perfect.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because I'll tell you, the ones I had were just garbage.
Yeah, see, I mean, everybody says I got this Merlin, it ain't broken good or whatever, but
the thing sounded like a diesel, on and off, on and off. It was horrible.
No kidding. Yeah,
I put over 100 flights in that airplane. The week of the team selection, I put 100 flights on the airplane, changing things, trying to figure out what was wrong with that engine. I never did.
That's really weird. Yeah, that one that John DeTavio gave Samantha runs. That fucker just runs purrs. Runs so good.
Mm. Give me one.
This might be off subject, but I got a OS Surpass 52 4-stroke on a stunner, and I'm having 3 or 4 different people telling me what size different props to put on that.
Mm.
You need to get online and find the guy. I can't think of his name that does all the 4-stroke stuff. And he'll be able to tell you what to do.
Bruce Engines?
No. If you get on 4-stroke forum, the guy who runs that forum, whoever, he makes the Venturis and he makes a little deal for Satos and them guys have tested that.
You're talking about one of the sections of Stunthangar?
Yeah. I can't think of the guy's name. But now I heard that the Surpass engines never did work good for control line.
Yeah.
I know I got one, and it runs
non-Surpass. Then they're okay, but I don't know what the difference is in them.
Well, 4-stroke sure came in and out of stunt real fast.
Yeah.
Zambelli uses small Surpasses on his twin engine, some of his twin engine planes.
Yeah, Zambelli, that's who it is. You talk to him, and he can tell you more about 4-strokes than anyone else. I know the Moon Brothers, they make a carburetor thing for OSs to change them over to for control line. They do something. But yeah, Zambelli, or if you get on Doug Moon's website, he has a whole thing in there about the Surpass motors. They make some kind of a carburetor adapter or whatever that for control line.
Yeah, I've seen a couple different adapters.
But yeah, them guys would be able to tell you more. Somebody who flew it, who still fly them. I've seen some good running 4-strokes, but I don't know what the problem was with them.
Too many parts, too many moving parts, and too much. Everything's so small. It's like a V8 engine. Has bigger parts and they're more stable. Get down to little tiny parts and little springs and all that. They just don't last.
Yeah,
you don't like that, huh? Little tiny.
I don't know. I never tried one. I just completely. I was already into electric by that time, and
I don't know.
Every low engine I had.
I just love the sound of them as they're going around.
Yeah, they do sound neat, but
wow. Yeah.
Have you ever seen the little bolt-on superchargers for model aircraft engines? That's hilarious. I had no idea. I think I watched a video of somebody putting one on an engine on YouTube, and I've seen nothing about it on Stunthangar, but sure enough, it looks just like a supercharger on top of a race car, bolted on a bolted on an aircraft. model aircraft engine.
Little Hilborn injectors up there.
Well, actually, OS actually produced a supercharged 4-stroke 120.
Guess that's what those guys up there in Colorado need, huh? Flying.
But they were so expensive. I mean, back in the day, them things were $600 and some back when you could buy it a regular 60 or, you know, a 4-stroke 120 for 300. They're like twice as much money.
Mm.
I have a friend that has one, but that's the same thing. When you change altitude, you got to change damn how much it pre-charge. They do have a throttle, but when you're going for full out power, you got to change stuff. And
power is limited no matter how much fancy stuff you put on it when you start running out of air at 5,000 feet and up in, like Denver, for instance.
I mean, Wally hasn't been on for a while, but he's what, 7,000 feet?
Wow.
Something like that. Our
Yeah,
buddy Michael, I forget what his last name is. He's in Colorado somewhere.
if you live at 5,000 feet, you should be flying, or 7,000 feet, you should be flying gliders.
Flying what?
Gliders.
Oh, yeah.
Gliders, yeah. Yeah, he's from Idaho.
Yeah, Wally's from Idaho. I don't know what his altitude is.
All in Potato Head, Idaho potato.
I tell you what, I don't have a problem with dead air when Wally's on with us.
Nope.
Yeah, really. Hold on a
I
second.
haven't seen him in a long time. I enjoy him when he comes on.
Yeah, he's got a lot of neat stuff.
Well, guys, I think
Them shadow boxes, remember what them boxes that he made? Was that him, wasn't it?
I don't remember. Who was that saying they got to go? Was that you, Bob?
Yeah, I'm gonna bag it for tonight, guys. I gotta get up and.
Well, let's call it a night.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get going too. I got to get up early. But
All right, it's 11:56.
been nice getting on.
Good show. So thanks everybody, and thank all of you YouTube guys for hanging out with us. And we got an occasional super chat donation. We always appreciate that. So y'all do something fun. Hey, Wally's watching us. 4,500 feet. That's how high Wally is. Okay, Wally. Thanks for watching.
Hello, Wally.
All right, you guys all do something fun this week, so we got something to talk about on Friday. All right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'll have something fun to talk about on Monday, but not on Friday.
You're gonna go flying this weekend?
Yes, I am. I'm going to a kid cancer fly-in for an RC club, and they invited me out because they want me to teach them to fly some control lines. So I got me a trainer ready for them, and gonna have some fun.
Cool.
Right. Okay. Well, until Friday, as the old Sparky would say, fair winds, tight lines. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got this Oriental Plus box, 605 inches on the Plus.
All right. Bring it to show and tell next time.
Alrighty, take it
All right,
easy.
good night.